We're gonna start. So welcome to the fourth edition of the Paris Dribbble meetup. We're really thrilled to have you all here today at Algolia. So my name is Lucas. I'm a designer here, working the design team. Just a question: who knows Algolia here? If you can raise your hand. Okay. Well, for those who don't know Algolia, so we're a search API, a company that is doing search. So basically, you as a user send us your data as a JSON format, and we will take care of indexing this data, and we will let you access to it using a endpoint API. So we provide a lot of different APIs, front-end libraries, backend implementation to access those data. And we also provide a growing amount of resources, demos, and a lot of documentation and examples to help you make the best out of your search. So we're like kind of smart search engine in the sense of we're having a lot of different features like typo tolerance, among a lot of other features. And so yeah, once again, thank you for being here, and I will let you enjoy the meetup. So our first speaker is Félix Lepoutre from Lydia, and he will tell us about designers among developers. Thank you.
Allô, m'entend? Yes. Okay, great. So nice to meet you, everyone. My name is Félix Lepoutre, and so I'm the first speaker tonight. So the meetup must be in English, but I'm totally French, but I will do my best anyway. I would like to start by saying thank you to Sébastien for inviting me and Algolia. I was not sure to say yes when you asked me because two reasons. The first one is that I don't have that much experience on the meetup topic, so it's not always easy. And the second one is because it's called a Dribbble meetup, and honestly, I don't use Dribbble at all. So it was a bit weird to me. But Sébastien was like, come on, no big deal. We need speakers. So here I am, and I'm very happy. So thank you again. And I don't know why it's called Dribbble meetup, by the way, but anyway. So the topic is how to collaborate with developers and create a design team. Good one. Sorry for those who came for the second part because I won't talk about this. I never built a design team from scratch. So, and even if I'm currently doing it at Lydia, the company I work for, I don't have enough stories to tell you, so I skipped this part. And about the first one, instead of collaboration, I would like to talk about the relationship. So right now it looks like I destroyed a bit the meetup topic, but actually not that much. Relationship and collaboration are pretty close, but in my vision is that to have a good collaboration, you first need a good relationship. So a first relationship is first required to then set up a good collaboration. And by relationship, I mean the interrelation with the developers, the emotions, how you can provoke positive feelings in your team. Instead of collaboration is more about the tools and the process. And I could have read a lot of Medium articles about collaboration. There is like a ton of articles, so I could have read every article and show a best of here. But it would have been impersonal, and I think I don't know what is the best tool or the best process. So I decided to focus my talk on my own experience and my own stories at my company with my developers. So quickly, my name is Félix Lepoutre. I'm a product designer, and I mostly designed mobile apps. So I have the most interacted with iOS and Android engineer. I'm in love with UX design, product, mobile. I also in love with digital photography. and with the Strasbourg-Saint-Denis neighborhood. You can't find me anytime at Morissette's. And I work for Lydia, so I joined the company more than 3 years ago now. So at this time, it was my first full-time job, and it was about 2 developers when I joined the company. And when I joined the company, it was about 25,000 users. And yesterday, we celebrate our 1 million users. So it was a great day, a lot of champagne. And so yes, from 25,000 to 1 million, it's been great to me to leave the growth and be part of the company. And I work with different tech team size, from 2 developers to almost 10. So I learned a lot about process and how to take care of each developers. And I guess you know Lydia. Who is using Lydia? Yes? Oh, cool. So almost everyone. I will be short, but so Lydia is an easy app to send money to your friends or your family. We are famous for the feature that lets you send money to your friends and your family. But we also do a lot of things. So I will take a minute to talk about Lydia. So you can do, for example, set a recurring transaction. If you send the same amount to the same person every month for Netflix, for example, you can set up a recurring transaction. You can create virtual cards that lets you pay online more securely. You can use Apple Pay as well. You can also see all your bank account balance on the same screen by connecting your bank. You can do transfer between your own bank accounts. You can order a plastic MasterCard to pay everywhere with Lydia. So we do a lot of things, not peer-to-peer payments. So one of my daily challenge at Lydia is to put all these features face-to-face with you, with the user, without impacting the app you like today, I like today. So I will start to tell you some stories about attitude and behavior I had at Lydia that was very helpful to have a good relationship with developers. And that good relationship was allow us to set up a good collaboration. So first, I would like to talk about our open space configuration. I think it matters a lot when we talk about relationship. So here I am, and Blue Tots are developer. So I'm developer all around me, which is pretty cool. And so here is the mobile team, so iOS, Android, and here is the backend team. Oops. And oh no, shit. Okay. So backend team, and the cool things about this configuration is that the mobile team was constantly able to see what I'm working on, what I'm focused on, and so they have a direct view of what's next for the company. And even the backend team, by walking back from their break, they can see my screen. They are like, oh cool, a new security screen is coming, and they keep going. So, but this is our past configuration, and we moved our desk for space optimization. So the mobile team was not able anymore to see my screen. And I remember feeling some frustration from them about this. And everything became secret between us and I. And it was kind of sad because I remember we had a lot of conversation about what I was doing in my daily life at Lydia. And even if they know, of course they know what are the next massive feature from the company roadmap. But most of the time I'm not working on this feature. I'm on quick improvement, UX revamp, or some details that matters a lot. So it's important to make sure they know what you are working on. So I tried to find a solution for this. So I tried to print stuff on the wall. So it was cool because I could stick correction on it, like on Facebook correction. But honestly, it takes too much time, and UI doesn't look good on paper. And it's good for massive features, so it's pretty cool for like the whole company, the market team, the business team. So I did this one time, but I never did it again. So I'm still looking for a great solution to make sure all developers are aware about what is coming. I know some companies have TV when designer can send screenshots in real time, so everyone know what are the explorations, the new ideas. But it's very important to me because they could come to see you at lunch one day and tell you, oh, I saw you're working on this screen, check this app, it's pretty cool, and it's provoke a lot of conversation and discussion. And I would like to do a quick aside about the designer and developer ratio. It's a complex subject, but ours is 1 designer for 7 developers. Some people say 1:5 is good, and 1:10 is good. So I talk for peer-to-peer company, B2C company, because Algolia, you're B2B, and I know your ratio is more than this, I guess. But I mean, for a B2C company, 1:7 is pretty good, and when you reach 1:10, I think it's time to hire a designer, because you won't be able to have an overview on everything your developer will ship. And I found this on TechCrunch, and it's pretty interesting to see how much big companies understood the value of designer in the past 5 years. Look at IBM, for example. 5 years ago, it was 1 for 72 designers, and today it's 1 for 8. So a lot of hiring. So this is totally ironic. I know it looks ridiculous, but I thought it was funny to use this kind of picture. I never used it, so I did it right now. So I would like to talk about involvement. So make sure you involve the developers in your process and in the product. And so sometimes we look like this. Not every time, but sometimes, by the fact that for example, because we don't have product managers at Lydia, so there is no intermediary between us and I. So we are facing each other every day. We have a lot of conversation between developers and I. So we are very close to each other. So that helps to have a good relationship, and it's easy for me to involve them in the product. And so what is cool for me is I can involve the developer at any step of the features project. Sometimes it's at the end when everything is ready and everything is well designed. But most of the time I prefer to involve the developers at a very early stage, because I think they are very good at UX and more than we can think, because they know the logic. So one day I had to work on a classic feature, an easy feature actually. So on Lydia you have transaction and it's ordered by months, and the idea was to offer settings that lets user order the transaction by week and not by months. And when I start working on it, I said, okay, I stopped right now, and I asked all the mobile team, not the backend because we don't need services for this, so just the mobile team, and we went to a meeting room, and I said, okay, we have 20 minutes to think about this feature. We will do it together, and we will think about the product specs, how it looks, and when we leave the meeting, I would like you are able to develop it, and I want to test it the same day. And it was the first time I did it, and it was very appreciated by the developer, by the tech team, because they feel very involved in the product, and it's a good opportunity for them to give them a voice on the product. They are not just there to code what I do. So it's a good exercise I recommend. And so yes, I try to involve developers as much as possible in the product. And sometimes I even go further. It's not about product, so we don't do the product together, but I give them a total liberty on the design, some visual design aspects. So it could be risky sometimes. But for example, this is our security screen when you do a payment. So this is state number 1 when you didn't hit the digit yet, and here when you hit the digit. And I say to the developer, okay, you are free to do whatever you want for the animation around the dots, and do whatever you want. And the developer came back to me 20 minutes later with something actually very great. So a pop-up animation around the dots when you hit the digit. It was smooth, light enough. And so the result is that I saved time. I could have spent 1 hour on After Effects working on a cool animation. But so I saved time, and the developer was actually very proud of him, because it's a screen that appears in the app a lot of times. So he's like, okay, this is my stuff. It's pretty cool. So it's good. It's also good for the creativity, for the keep dev involved in the creativity. But as I said, there is some risk. Sometimes they go too much, and when they know how to do some things, they want to do as much as possible. So it could be too much and gross, and the risk is that most of the time I have to say, no, sorry, we can't do this. So it could create frustration, and frustration is really bad for the relationship. And one day, I remember it was 2 years ago, a developer was so proud of what he did about the pop-up animation. He was so proud that I couldn't say no. So it stayed in the app for 1 year until another developer arrives at Lydia. So there is some risk, but it's a good exercise for their creativity. And so about frustration, I would like to talk about empathy as well. So empathy is about understanding the emotion and the emotion of others. So you can act differently later. So this could be us sometimes as well. And to avoid this situation, I have one very important rule, is that I make sure that every developer are aware that what they are doing right now won't probably not exist anymore in the app in the next 6 months. Because we are a startup, so we are iterating a lot of things. We are testing many things, and sometimes we are even iterating on things that actually works. So it could be hard for them to work hard on something that disappears the next month. So for example, this is a screen when you do a payment. This is the last step. To confirm the payment, you can add a description. So this was the screen on January. So we did this one, and we are working on this one. We will probably ship this one next week, so it's a teasing for you right now. It's pretty cool. I'm cool. I'm very happy. So it's coming. So yeah, you have to make sure they're aware about this, otherwise it will create frustration. And same for us, I guess, as designers. Sometimes I'm very frustrated when my manager asks me to remove something I was really proud of. But you have to keep distance with it. And I remember reading somewhere, don't fall in love with your design. And last thing is about the interest. So it's important to involve the developer in the product, but as a designer, you also have to show your interest in what they do and care about the technology they use and understand the role of each other. For example, I remember when I did an internship 4 years ago, a developer offered me a meeting about 1 hour, and it took time to explain me how a mobile app works, server, local. And when he explained me this, it was very helpful for me to create better product after and to be more legitimate in front of the developers, because I know how it works. So it's very important for us as designers to make sure you understand how it works. And to show your interest, there is like easy things like asking why every time when a developer say no for something. Sometimes by asking why, they will realize that it's actually possible. So it's good. Or sometimes, or you will learn that it's not possible, so you will learn for the next time. You can see listening conversation as much as possible, so avoid listening music. So it's what I try in the open space, because you understand the issue. And knowing your developer's background as well is pretty important. When you have to, as a designer, you have to adapt your expectation depending the developers. And this is something I learned not that much long time ago, but 3 years ago I put this image with all the interface of Lydia, but I created this new navigation, so I destroyed the iOS guidelines. That was the navbar, the bottom navbar, and I decided to do this with a swipe, so pretty cool. But I asked to a junior developer, and it took 6 months to do this thing. So I should have cared about his experience first. And about the interest, still about the interest, I'm a designer who is using an iPhone, and I always use an iPhone, so I'm much more closer to the iOS team than the Android team, and it could be very bad for the whole relationship in the office. And naturally, I'm closer because I have better knowledge of Apple systems, so we have discussion about new features, about Apple guidelines, Keynote. We are closer because I designed first on iOS to see my screen on my iPhone, and sometimes I don't even have the time to design the mock on Android, so this is the worst for the relationship. And I provide naturally much more feedback for the iOS app because I use Lydia in my daily life, so I use it to pay back my friend, so I can see little details that needs to be updated, and I use it to pay my grocery at Franprix, so I have every context in my daily life, so I provide much more feedback. So my fake image is back, so the Android developer is sad. So I had to find a solution, so I changed my OS, so I use an Android since 3 months now. And it's pretty cool actually, so I'm very happy because first of all, I improved my skills about the Android guidelines. I know how famous apps works with Android guidelines, so I learned a lot. The Android app improved a lot because I provide much more feedbacks to the developer. And I have a better relationship with the Android developer naturally, and also with other iOS team, because by doing this move, by changing my OS, I show that I care about all operating systems. That was appreciated by the whole team. So my plan is, I don't know if I will try, I don't know what will happen, but to switch my device operating system every 6 months to care about everyone. So to conclude, I would like to say, can you take a picture, please? So this is Michael, our Android developer, the guys we were sad just before. So to conclude, I would say it's mainly about everything starts by hiring the good people, actually. So by considering the feelings before the skills. So when you see this guy, you want to work with him for sure. And I remember my Antoine, one of the Lydia co-founder, say us to the tech team, so mobile team and product team and backend team. Okay, guys, it's getting crowded here. We are almost 10. Let's please only hire people with whom you will be okay to go for a 10 hours mountain hike. And I think it says everything about hiring people. At least to have a good relationship. So that's it. Thank you very much for your attention. And I know my context is easier for me because I work with passionate developers, so it's not the case for everyone, and maybe with the best. So it helps a lot. But I'm still convinced that everything I show here did help to have a better relationship altogether. Thanks. Combien de temps?
Maybe some of you got questions for him? No? Okay. Oh, yes.
A magic box.
Hello. So you talk about the internet that had to build the navigation on iOS, and it took it 6 months to build it. And why, during the conversation you had with him about the feature, he didn't even tell you that he wasn't experienced enough to work on this?
No, because when you ask something to a developer, I guess you want to do everything to do it. And when he starts something, I think he's ready to do everything to accomplish the mission. And I think it's same for a designer. We are passionate, so when you ask something to a developer, it's hard to say stop after that. And actually, when we start this navigation, it goes very well at first. I could test the app very quickly, like 2 weeks after, but we realized like, it was very hard to implement everything in the navigation after that. But it was too late.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else, maybe? Okay. Well, thank you, Felix. That was super nice.
Welcome.
And now we will welcome Sasha from Algolia, which will talk to us about from developer-led to design thinking inspired organizations.
me? Okay. Well, thanks for the presentation, Felix. I think what I'm going to say is going to be a really nice compliment to that. I'm going to warn you ahead of time. I'm really anti-slides, so they're usually really ugly, and there's not too many of them, which is a good thing. But I'm sorry if I make your eyes bleed, designers. Okay, so before I start, can I get a sense of like who's in the audience? So if you consider yourself a product designer or a variation of that title like UX/UI designer, can you raise your hand? Okay, about a half. Brand or marketing designer? Brand or marketing? Okay. Pure UI designer? Just do UI, UI is your thing, okay? Pure UX designer? Oh, sorry guys. Graphic designer or illustrator? Okay. And front-end developer? Okay, cool. Design researcher? Wah, wah. Product managers? All right, interesting. So it sounds like we have a pretty good, diverse group of people here. I'm a product designer at Algolia. So most of the things that I'll talk about today come from my experience as a product designer, but I think they apply to most designers here. As a product designer, for those who aren't really familiar or whatever with what I do, is I focus on the end-to-end user experience with our products. And that means everything from user research to the actual not the implementation, I don't build stuff, but the actual UI. So it's a pretty broad skill set, and designers these days are expected to have a lot of skill sets. So I decided to give this talk because Algolia is a developer-led organization, and I've never worked in one before. And I find it really fascinating because in developer-led organizations, the awesome part is that developers tend to be really passionate about what they're building. They, especially in a company like Algolia, where developers build products for developers. So that means they know the end user quite well. They can empathize with the end user. And they put a lot of passion into what they do. And this is exactly what makes Algolia successful. There are some downfalls to working as a designer in a developer-led organization, and in general to developer-led organizations. One of those pitfalls is that oftentimes the people developing the products think that they're designing for the user, thinking that the user is themselves. However, oftentimes they forget that their own experience with our products is already biased by their extensive knowledge and intimate knowledge of the product. So it's oftentimes hard to step away and understand what the experience might look like for someone who's seeing the product for the first time or is not as knowledgeable about it, or for whom the product is not their primary life goal. So we do search, right? We're a search API, and that means that people who use us typically want to plug search into whatever product they're building and move on and build the core product. Search is usually not a core, is an important part of their product, but it's not the main point of the product. So a lot of those contextual, a lot of that knowledge about the user sometimes gets lost. And as a designer, the downside to working in a developer-led organization is that it's oftentimes hard to find your place. And sometimes design is perceived purely as an aesthetic discipline rather than a fully scoped or full business position. And I tend to think that product design is actually a business role rather than a purely creative role. So I come from Silicon Valley. I worked there before I moved to Paris in August. And the people who were perceived purely for aesthetic purposes were called pixel pushers. And coming from San Francisco, where design is a bit more mature, it's interesting for me to work in an organization that is, or trying to help an organization move from a developer-led organization to more of a design thinking-oriented organization. Obviously, I'm not the one doing all this work. It's a work in progress. It's going to take a lot of time, and it's the work of the entire product team to do it. But I would like to talk to you about a few things that we as designers can do to help move our organization from developer-led to design thinking inspired, and I'll explain what that means. If you work in an organization that has designers at the table, you're included early in the process, you know, you help make product and strategic decisions on the product. It's a product designer's dream, basically. Then good for you. And I'm sure that you'll still pick some tips up on personal development from this conversation. So is there a problem? Let's start just by asking, is there a problem with being a developer-led organization? And my philosophy on this is that there is a problem with being an anything-led organization, whether it's product-led or sales-led or marketing or design, because that means that there's an inherent imbalance in who's making decisions. And usually that leads to frustrations around the whole company. So what a company would like to achieve is a healthy tension between the different disciplines and decision makers to create products that take into account business goals, user needs, and technical constraints, as well as sales goals and things like that. And I think the reason that you don't want to be a developer-led organization, but a design thinking organization, is because designers don't own design thinking. Design thinking is a philosophy that can guide an organization toward considering the entire user experience in their product development process and their experience development process. And incorporating design thinking into the entire organizational philosophy actually builds natural alliances between developers, PMs, and designers, which is, like Felix said, is exactly what we're aiming to achieve. So why should designers have a seat at the table? Like, why is it even important for us to fight for this or to hope that we're included in the decision-making process earlier on and not just considered pixel pushers or just the owners of the aesthetic domain? Well, I think it's because these days we are expected to be business partners. The times of designers sitting in this isolated room with beautiful art and posters and inspiration everywhere are kind of gone. It's the past of advertising agencies and graphic design. I think in a lot of ways, product design today is expected to help make design decisions and product decisions, and to know the user and to know who we're designing for and why we're making certain design decisions. We're also are there to represent the user. I mean, if we're building solutions, we need to know what problems we're solving, and to know what problems we're solving, we really need to know who we're solving them for. In order to craft effective solutions, we need to have the full context, which means we need to be there earlier on when the problem is being identified in the first place. And if we build the right solutions, we make money for the company, and that's good. I've had situations in my personal experience where I've been told, oh, well, we're in the technical design phase right now. Like, we're not in the UX or UI phase right now, so let's just like do this. Let's talk design later. And then what would happen is I would start working on the design component, which is usually the interface, and I would realize that the experience that I would like to craft for our users is extremely constrained by the technology. So the technical design is already dictating the front end or the visual design or the user interface design. And in the end, I felt like I was putting lipstick on a pig, which is a phrase I like to use, where I wasn't able to create the experience that I wanted to, but had I been included in the technical discussions earlier and had we a broader idea of what of what experience we wanted to create, then maybe the technical stack could have been shaped slightly differently to allow for that front-end experience to materialize. And so what's a design thinking organization? So I think to start that conversation, we need to align on what design thinking is. And how many of you feel comfortable with the concept of design thinking? Okay, so design thinking is kind of a jargon term these days. It was super popular in 2015. But I still believe in it, even though it's like everyone's taking design thinking classes and lectures, and you know, people at big corporations are like, "Le design thinking," and but I actually really believe in it because I think it's a state of mind and it's a way to approach problem solving. And the first and I think most important step of this is empathy. And Felix talked about empathy for your developers, but it extends to, of course, everyone you work with, and most of all to the people you're building for. So empathize meaning knowing the user and then defining the problem, finding solutions, testing, iterating, blah, blah, blah. You know all that stuff. So in an organization that's a design thinking organization, every single person involved in crafting the experience of the organization thinks in this way. Whether they're an office manager crafting the space for the employees or for the candidates that come to visit, or whether it's a salesperson crafting that outbound email, or whether it's a designer crafting the product or the interface, everyone thinks about what does it mean when the intended user of this service or product or email interacts with our brand. And all of that is design thinking. So what can we do to move our organization closer to design thinking? I'll talk to you about a few things that we've tried here at Algolia. We're nowhere near design maturity and nowhere near our goal. But it's a really fun process, actually, and especially since we're working with really curious and talented engineers and product managers. And so most people are really open-minded to the ideas and try new things. So I highly encourage you to try these things for yourself and for your organization. So here's my little Yoda moment, or my long Yoda moment. So I think change management is inherently a really hard thing to achieve. And I find that changing yourself is easier than changing other people. So in any situation where change needs to happen, I first look at what I can do differently myself to affect the change and what I want to happen. So I really like this design report. It's called Future of Design and Startups 2017. If you haven't seen it, I highly encourage you to read it, because it's very interesting and it shows you trends and the directions in which the design industry is moving. And I'll use it for a few of my points today. So I think one of the most important things about getting a seat at the table is gaining trust from your partners, which are product managers and developers. Those are typically your immediate partners as a product designer. And in this report, they asked leading tech companies, what are the main skills that a designer needs to acquire in the next 2-3 years to be effective at their job? And who thinks, raise your hand, it was artificial intelligence? Who thinks it was designing for chatbots and voice? Okay. Who thinks it was business skills? Okay, it's business skills. It wasn't actually a slew of those hard skills or Photoshop or anything anything like that. It was business skills. And I think a lot of that just says that the expectations of businesses are for us not to just sit in a corner making pretty things, but actually step up and hold our seat at the table when we're given it and prove that we actually understand that the product we're building is going to hit the business metrics that we're trying to achieve. And are going to drive, the solutions are going to drive us toward business goals. My second point is actually, and here's a quote from the survey on why does and when does design fail? And you'll read here, it's when they don't have the holistic context of our problem, design in isolation, or are only focused on solving a user challenge but ignore the business need. So I thought that summed up pretty well why business skills are the top skill to learn. The second one is understand the technology. I'm not going to talk too much about it because Felix covered this point quite well, but to gain trust with developers. So developing business skills develops trust with PMs typically. Developing trust with developers is really learning and being curious about their tech stack to the point where you can actually have conversations with them about your proposed solutions. So I think really effective designers can provide 3 solutions and confidently talk about which one they think will be the most technically constraining, which one is the easiest one, but you're trading off user experience, and have those conversations quite fluently so that the developer trusts that you're keeping technology in mind when you're proposing solutions. And when you're arguing for something technically challenging, that they know you're not arguing for it just for design's sake, you're arguing for it knowing that yes, it's gonna take a lot of effort from you, but it's a superior user experience. And they might be eager to include you in technical conversations earlier on if they understand that you actually kind of understand what they're talking about. A lot of designers are afraid to ask questions because a lot of us are perfectionists by nature. A lot of us are expected to bring solutions. And sometimes asking questions is scary and you might feel stupid doing it. But I think actually asking questions is one of the most effective ways to gain trust and to show that you deserve a seat at the table. So when somebody comes to you with wireframes or saying, hey, can you make a solution to this problem? Or, hey, here's a napkin from lunch that I drew an interface on. Can you make this pretty? One of the first things that I usually do is I start asking questions. Who are we building this for? Why are we building this? What problem are we actually solving? What outcomes are we hoping for? What metrics will we track to evaluate the success of this design? What is our assumption? And these questions are not stupid. They're actually really valid questions because they'll inform your design. They'll highlight the holes in product strategy. I've actually had situations where I asked these questions and people said, well, actually, I'm not sure who we're designing this for. I think we're designing this for this person, but maybe it's this person. And it's like, okay, well, let's figure it out. And then it will also show your colleagues that you're likely being brought into the process too late because you don't have all the context, and that you deserve a seat at the table. And then finally, as a designer, if you want to really move your organization toward design thinking, think about how much you yourself exemplify design thinking. If you don't constantly show your designs to your users or to people outside of your organization for evaluation, then maybe you should start doing it. Or if you don't understand your users before you start building products, maybe you should build that empathy first. Because unless you exemplify it and unless you do it and include other people in the organization into the process, then it won't spread. Okay, so those are the internal things we can do. And a lot of this is really hard work because you can't learn business overnight. You can't understand technology overnight. And you certainly can't start exemplifying design thinking. All of it takes practice and all of it takes hard work. So good luck. And then there are a few things we can do on the outside within our organization to also help spread design thinking and get developers on board on the design thinking train and just following with the design process and including us earlier on. And one of those things is hosted design thinking workshops. So whether it's hiring someone from the outside, a consultant to come teach your organization about the broader value of it, or whether you do it yourself if you're a small team, it could be really valuable to get people excited about the concept and to actually give them the tools to use it in their daily workflow. So let's say a developer, why does a developer need to know design thinking? Well, it might be valuable to them when they're thinking about the tech stack to think about who their final users are going to be. Maybe it's even you, and how you might actually build on top of that stack, an experience on top of that stack. Invest in research. So one of the things we did at Algolia is we hired a design researcher recently, and I think that's going to be a huge step toward building that empathy, not just within the design and product teams, but on the developer team. And also letting them understand where their assumptions about what the user experience, what the user wants and needs based on their biases is different from reality. And as our user base keeps expanding, we'll also tap into and understand other users like product managers and merchandisers and end users of search. And finally is find an executive champion. So it's true that organizations that are successful in design thinking have someone at the top really advocating for it. So Google, for example, is a very traditional developer-led organization, or at least it used to be. And it wasn't until Larry Page started talking about the value of design at company meetings or talking about white space and actually heavily investing in hiring design talent and design leaders that Google transformed into a design leader today. I mean, they've released material design. They're pushing the boundaries in a lot of ways, both with technology and with aesthetics. And that's really a happy world for a lot of designers. So if you have someone on the executive team who's open to this, try to convince them to think about investing in this direction. So I talked a lot about my experience at Algolia and being a developer-led organization, some challenges that it might create, but I think the overall experience here is that it's not negative. It's actually really positive because it's a wonderful opportunity for me to learn and for the entire design team to grow. As you saw, there are a lot of work ourselves we can do to become more effective partners to our developers and PMs. And so it's a really great growth opportunity for everyone. And we're hiring. So we're looking for a senior product designer. And if you want the challenge of helping make Algolia a more design-driven organization, bring design thinking here, if you have a kick-ass UX skill set and you're pretty good at UI too, come talk to me and apply. So that's it. Yeah. Questions?
Hi, thank you for your presentation. In my society, we're starting to initiate some co-conception workshops with the different stakeholders. And sometimes we have some people who said, why you are asking me to do your job? So have you met this situation one time, and have you some tips for don't meet this situation again?
Yeah, that's a really interesting situation, and I'd say it's a tough one when you're trying to include people in the process and they're resistant to it. I would just recommend saying, you know, I actually think that design is everyone's job, and I actually think that it's not just my product, it's our product, and I would love for you to give it a try and to see if you can contribute some ideas to this process. I've led some workshops too where people were quite resistant to the design sprint process, or said, I don't sketch, or like literally sketch, not sketch app. And I was like, you know what? Like, it's okay. Like, we're gonna make ugly things, and it's okay if your thing is ugly. Just use boxes and arrows, and let's just get ideas out there. And say, like, you know, if you think this is my job, then do you think that the entire product is not our job? Like, I think we all should be contributing to it, and I would love your ideas. Just think of it, spin it positively. American. Okay.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Thomas Lin. I'm from BIM. I'm the only designer in my team, in my startup. And I want to know how is organized the design team in Algolia, and how many people are there, and what kind of profile are they?
Yeah, so right now we have two design teams. We have the brand design team and the product design team. So the brand design team is, we are designers together, and we do a lot of things together, but we sit in actually different parts of the organization. So the brand design team is under marketing, we're under product. So that said, I think it's really important to have a cohesive design culture between all of the designers, because our work influences their work and their work influences our work. So what we do is we have design critique once a week, all of us. We have Creative Fridays once a quarter where all of us work on a design project together. And more concretely on the product design team, we're 3 right now. And historically, our skill set has trended toward more UI, and we're trying to balance it out with more UX. So I'm kind of in the middle. I would say I'm more UX leaning, but we're trying to balance it out a bit.
Thank you. And how many people are you?
On the product design team, we're 3. And we have a researcher. I'm very happy about that.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Any other questions? Okay, well, thanks.
So thank you, Sasha. And now we will welcome Marie-Aline, which will talk to us about Abstract, a version control application for designers. So welcome.
Un, deux, un, deux, ouais. Non, Oula. Okay, hello. Today I will introduce you to Abstract, a version control app for designer. And thank you to Algolia to us the meetup. To begin, dear English speakers, excuse my English, I will read my notes. I'm Marie-Aline. I like to fix and ride my motorbike, and I'm also a UX designer, and I have been working at Weekend Desk, an online travel agency, since last September. I joined the consumers product team made up of 5 people, including an UI designer and me. I arrived at the company at the beginning of a project, and I suggest to testing Abstract to set up a design workflow. Does that picture remind you of something? Before my job at Weekend Desk, I had never really worked within a design team. So I didn't see how designers organize themselves to manage their files. but I imagine it looks like like this. And as my friend Gaëtan would say, and don't even talk about what is in the PSD. Who know abstract in the room? Okay, cool. Okay, why are you here? Who has tried it? Okay, cool. And who use it now? Okay, cool. So I discovered this software last year thanks to a former teammate, Luc, the writer. And at the time I was freelancing and needed a solution to focus on my task and do them step by step, over extending myself. I tried abstract on personal projects on my own, and I must confess, I liked it. Who is working alone in the room as a designer? Only one designer in the team, okay. And between 1 or 3 designers in the team? Okay, and more 3 designers? Okay. Okay, cool. So, what does Abstract do? Abstract is a piece of software to help teams version control sketch files. I won't tell you everything about it, so feel free to ask me questions during the demo or after the presentation. Does version control mean anything to you? Yes? Yes? Okay, fine, cool. Thank you. So version control is a piece of software that has been used by our developers' friends for decades. We even find traces of this process in the 70s, just for now. But, so for example, in a little web project, we have our index.html and styles.css. And for each main change, we just put the command save, because the project is on your computer locally. But in real life, many developers collaborate on the same big project. So what do? They use a version control system, like Git, for example. So you may be wondering what is Git. Let's look with a little example. The project here is like a tree with the main branch called master here in this axis. And we have the project here represented by some files. And each developer can start a new branch from master here to create a new feature or fix a bug. And we have a new branch of work. It code, it changed many things, and we can see like this with some commits, like the milestone of the project, of his branch. And when his work is over, he puts his branch to master, like here and here, to update master, and each other developer can pull its change and continue to work on the same project. Cool, so we have a single source of truth for each project. So let's go to a demo of Abstract, obviously, to have the... okay, go. Welcome to Abstract with a dashboard overview of an organization. Here, Weekend Desk. Like Slack, you can have several organizations and your personal projects. We have a lot of projects here, and we can see since a lot of months. We can have a specific view for teammates. We have editors and viewers. Up and go back to the project. Okay, go focus on our main and current project, Maxibus. We have an overview, and we find again the master of our project with several files. here 4, and one of them is a sketch design library. Into this file, we find again the page we have in the sketch file. So we want to work with, and for that we gonna on the branch view, and we can see my teammate Teresa who are working on the mise à jour market discovery branches, and we can see all of his changes represented by the commit view, but in fact we are just one init commit. Okay, so let's go to create a new project together. I'm back on Weekend Desk. I create a new project, and I have an example for crypt app. We can write some description to describe the project, but I lost my cursor. Okay. Okay. I can do two things: import sketch file already existing, or create new. But I choose to import some. Two of them. Okay, I choose this one. It's the init commit of the project, importing the files. And now I have two files. Cool, with a different artboard into. I choose to use this specific file as a library. Right click and check it. Okay, fine. Put. And let's go to work on it. If you want to work with abstract, you need to already always edit your sketch file from abstract, even if abstract doesn't track the changing. So my task today is to change the profile pages of this app. So I create a new app, and I call rewamp profile page. I can add some description, but not today. Okay, fine. I have a new branch. Cool. Abstract call sketch to open the file. Okay, cool. I have a sketch file, classic, and I search. I'm looking for the profile page, and I need to change it. Okay, cool. I would take the new image, put here, change here. Okay, cool. I save with Command S my sketch file, and we can see here the plugin, the abstract plugin. Okay, cool. I want to commit my change. I want to do a major milestone of my work. I click it, and I write what I do. Change profile picture. Cool. On the branch, I can choose another branch, but I stay on a rewamp profile page. Okay, I commit. I can see my history. Okay, cool. And my day is over. I go back home. I binge a few episodes of Silicon Valley, and a new day starts tomorrow. I'm working remotely from Barcelona, from another laptop of this one, for example. But no problem. I download the abstract app from the laptop. I log in. I download this project, and I can work again, and commit, and update the project. I'm completely peaceful when I work and rework something on my file, because everything is already uploaded on the cloud storage of Abstract. My teammate Ben here could check my update right now, if you want. It's a main point of the use of Abstract to synchronize always the thing by commits. merge branch to display, to push the change across the organization. Okay, my job is good. I merge a branch, so I put my change on master branch. By this way, I can add something. Okay, the work is done, job is done. And we can see my branch disappear, but the commit of the master branch added my branch and the change. During this time, my collaborators can work on their own branch without being bothered by each other. It's pretty cool. But abstract doesn't replace team communication. It's a support of to be rigorously, but you need to continue to have design review, communication across designer with your other collaborators. But the fact, abstract brings more fluidity to your workflow. And another word, Git experts should know abstract cannot be used in a terminal like Git. The software offers the main feature of Git, but in an abstract way. Okay, you can have sometimes some conflict. So I show you a conflict example. We have the same symbol across two different files of two different branches, and you can pick the symbol you want just with the two buttons here, and the symbol will update it on the branch, the master branch. It is possible to don't see differences. In this case, laser could be changed by symbol. Maybe here and here it's the same, and before it was a group of layers, and here now it's a symbol. But it's okay. It's okay. Abstract, who is it for? Single designer or product team or product designer team. Abstract replaces Dropbox, Box, Google Drive for storage and versioning history, but doesn't replace design review and communication across the team. And design library are integrated. Wonderful. It's pretty cool to work together on several and same files, and to be several designers on the same project. Manage easily conflict of artboard, symbol, and other components. Have single cloud storage and of all projects, and I have a timeline of edits, history of your change across time. But you need to know on Sketch, so on macOS. Very important to understand control version. I've made you a little bit introduction, but it's pretty complex. And obviously continue to design review. You know that, Sketch crash, but it's okay. You can find again your specific files and commits across the deeply path in your laptop. It's very easy. Click right, show all the package content, and blah 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 at this path. Abstract as competitors, but to be honest, I never tested them. I like to check them. Voila.
Questions? Yeah, cool.
Don't you find it too heavy for a single designer? Because don't you find it too heavy, too complex for a single designer in a team?
Is it complex to use abstract in a design?
No, because for example, I tried abstract, plant, and I work alone. I am a designer. I'm the only designer in my team, and I find it very too heavy in my daily job.
Okay. Are you friendly with Git and control version? Yeah. Okay. When I was alone as freelance, abstract helped me to be focused only on a specific task. To don't modify font and modify this screen of splash screen and modify this component. No, with abstract, I could to have a specific task, modify a screen, modify a component, and step by step. And I think it's a good way to be more efficient in your work.
So it guides you in your workflow of improving your interfaces? Yes. Okay.
Hello. You talk about you transform in your demo a file, a sketch file, into a library. And I have a question. What is the difference between an abstract library versus a sketch library?
It's the same thing?
It's the same thing. Yes. So when you transform a sketch file into a library in abstract, it transforms it into a library in sketch also.
Yes, yes. Okay. You define the sketch type in abstract to the tracking files.
Okay. Thank you.
Hello. Do you have pull requests?
No. Something. Not really, and that's why I said team communication is very important. And I said abstract way because a lot of features of Git aren't available in abstract. It's a very fluidity and simplest way to version control design sketch file. You need to define specific protocol in your team and maybe define a specific meeting to merge the master and stuff. Today we are only 2 designers at Weekend Desk, and we work easily together. Another question? Okay, thank you.
So thank you a lot for attending the event. There's a lot of beers and pizza behind you, so feel free to take whatever you want. And just one thing for the people that smoke cigarettes, it's only this balcony that got ashtrays. So if you can smoke and put your cigarettes in the ashtray, that's amazing. Thank you.